There's not a single chatterbait mentioned in this book, and I'm upset by that. Welcome, everyone, to another awesome episode of the Fishing Loons podcast, brought to you by Avid Ontario Anglers. This episode is also brought to you by the Cancast Fishing Show. I'm excited. It's going to be a good year.
You may have heard this, but this year Cancast is going to be what, Andrew?
Bigger than ever.
We're really excited about the fishing show. We have coming up a bunch of segments on episodes coming up where we're going to have some interviews and stuff. I'm really excited. It's almost like you need a full month of podcast just dedicated to Cancast. We're not going to do that to you guys. It's only going to be 2 episodes, but look forward to those ones.
Plus a bonus one, maybe, when we tell you about all the stuff we bought. To get back to our regular scheduled programming in the meantime, before the excitement of the trade shows start, we have a great episode for you today. It's kind of all about a bit of history with fishing and how fishing has progressed. That's all I'm going to say on that for now. But before we get into the main meat and potatoes of the topic, as they say, Jesse has an interesting fishing fact. And he did pretty good last time. So let's see if we can keep that ball rolling with another interesting one. Or it'll be a slog and we'll see you in about, you can skip about 12 minutes ahead.
Well, this one's actually, I'd say it's pretty interesting. Remember that show?
He's making caveats already.
No.
Do I skip ahead?
I don't know, but if you're a millennial, do you ever remember that show, Mighty Machines?
Mighty Machines.
Exactly, right? I used to love that show.
What do you mean used to? I've seen your YouTube searches.
Mighty Machines, though, was an awesome show because it was all about like big machines. And I was actually on Instagram a few weeks ago, and it was one of those like nostalgia Instagram accounts, like 90s nostalgia, and Mighty Machines came on, and I was like, dang, I missed that show. But it got me thinking, every time in the past I've searched something about muskie fishing on Google, and then this has come up more than a few times. Now, it's not fishing related at all, but it's very interesting. I always said to myself, the next time I see this, I'm going to make a mental note to write this down as an interesting fishing fact. So here we are. It all started with Mighty Machines. So did you know, Andrew, there is a Mighty Machine named the Big Muskie? It's literally called the Big Muskie.
Are you talking about my truck?
No.
I'm just kidding. I didn't call it that. I should have, though.
So this machine, it was called the Big Muskie, and it was a gigantic dragline excavator built in 1969 in Ohio by the Ohio Coal Company. So when you think of like large excavating machines, I'm not talking about like a bulldozer. I'm talking about those giant coal mine excavating machines. The ones you see in the tires are like the size of a house. And you see a guy standing beside it, like tapping it. He's like, each tire costs $12 million. You're like, what?
Does this thing have like one of the, like, you know how a regular excavator has like a bucket? Does this have like multiple buckets on a conveyor or something crazy? Like one of those big machines?
To describe this as enormous doesn't even compute. This thing is absolutely gigantic. It was 222 feet tall, which is taller than a 20-story building. Giant, okay? It was 487 feet long, and it weighed 13,500 tons. Huge.
Just like his mom. I'm just kidding.
I was going to say almost as much as Andrew's 50-inch muskie, but I like the mom joke better. So basically, it weighed about the equivalent of about 20 full-size school buses. So it's big. Now, its purpose, you may think, why would anyone possibly need a machine that big? Well, this is the purpose. It was built to remove soil and rock above coal seams in open pit mining operations in Ohio. The bucket alone has a capacity of 220 cubic yards, which is big enough to fit 2 Greyhound buses side by side. It's absolutely giant. Like, I know this is like an audio podcast, but I'm going to put a link down below in the show notes so you can see a picture of this thing. Just do your favor, click on that, check out the picture. It is absolutely gigantic. So the bucket alone, I'm going to repeat that, big enough to fit 2 Greyhound buses side by side. It's 220 cubic yards. So at the building I work at, we have, when you have like, like a Miller waste bin, Usually it's like, oh, that's an 8-yard bin or that's a 4-yard bin.
Those big ones, the black plastic lids that fold down, big fork truck on the front end comes, lifts it over.
Yep. So when you see the big ones, that's an 8 cubic yard bin. That's 8 cubic yards. That's huge. Like you could fit literally 20 people in that. This is 220 cubic yards for just the bucket. Oh, because of this large side, it was the largest single bucket digging machine ever constructed. That's insane. Now, it wasn't mobile like a car. Now you may think like this machine, obviously it had to move, but it couldn't move fast. But it did have the ability to move itself. But it was very, 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 very slow. So you may think, oh, how fast did it move? Probably walking speed of a human. It wishes. It absolutely wishes. It actually had these huge hydraulically driven walking feet that kind of like pushed it forward a few inches at a time. Its top speed was 0.1 miles an hour. That's pretty slow. Man. So anyway, I'm just going to describe something about this machine. It's pretty cool. It was powered electrically from cables that carried 13,800 volts. And it basically had 18 1,000 horsepower and 10 625 horsepower DC electric motors. Now, just to operate this machine, it required a whole crew of men. It wasn't just like one guy in the top and this, like, operating it like a bulldozer. Like it was a whole team of men that needed to do this. Now, the energy that this thing used was the equivalent to powering over 27,000 homes and cost tens of thousands of dollars to run per hour. This was in 1969. This isn't like recently. This was back in the day.
Fuel economy. What's that?
For 22 years, from 1969 to 1991, Big Muskie churned through millions of cubic yards of earth, more than twice the amount moved during the construction of the Panama Canal. That's impressive for one piece of machinery. You have to think though, like you think of like cars and trucks these days. You buy a car or truck and you're like, okay, I expect to get, 300,000 kilometers, 400,000 kilometers, more if you buy a Toyota. This machine, they're like, we're getting 1 trillion miles on this baby because it costs a lot of money. Back in 1969, this huge machine, which again, absolutely gigantic, size of a 20-story building, took a whole crew of people to use, cost tens of thousands of dollars a day just to run. It cost $15 million in 1969. So that's roughly $130 million today after inflation. So if you're thinking, that machine's pretty cool, I might try to build one myself, you're going to need about $130 million. Now, unfortunately, what happens, a lot of this like machining and digging and coal pit stuff back in the day was like done because there wasn't a lot of like environmental studies done on it and all this stuff is bad for the environment. You have this big massive machine that's just, scooping out like half of the center of the earth. So basically, eventually this thing became unprofitable to use. There was a lot of protests for strip mining. So basically the Big Muskie, it wasn't used after the 1990s. And it was taken out of service in 1991, which was the best year ever because that was the year I was born, 1991, the year of Nirvana. Today, all that's left of Big Muskie in Ohio is its giant bucket preserved at Miners Memorial Park as a tribute to the miners and the era of coal mining. I would actually see that. Like if I was driving through that area, I would stop to see that huge bucket and I would stand beside it and be like, that's a nice bucket. That's pretty cool.
That's a roadside attraction.
So you may wonder, what does this have with fishing? Absolutely nothing. I just love big machines and it's the name of a muskie. So I mean, like, I'm down for it. I think of those, remember those little diggers you had when you were a kid down at the park and you just like move 2 levers and you little digging? If you were on that at the park, all the other kids were jealous because you had respect. Imagine how it felt driving the Big Muskie, the biggest industrial scooper of all time. So anyway, Andrew, we're going to have to plan a fishing trip and we're going to have to go to Ohio. Which, I mean, that's not even that far, really.
No.
Ohio? It's just across the border. We'll go to Ohio. We'll plan a fishing trip, and we will stop at the Big Bucket.
I think we should fill the bucket up and then, like, dump a bunch of sunfish in there and have a little, like, the muskie fishing derby. And or put muskie in there. How about that? Like a little muskie pond in the muskie bucket.
They bury the bucket, fill it with water, attach it with, like, a creek so it has, like, flowing water, and then put muskie in the muskie bucket.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, Ohio, hire us. This is gold.
If you are listening to this and you are from Ohio, please message me if you have seen this gigantic bucket. I know that sounds sad, but like I really want to know if someone has seen this gigantic bucket or if they've even heard of it. That just, it seems like something so weird. Like, when you're driving and then there's always like these random museums. It's like the biggest ball of yarn museum.
Yes.
And you're like, who would stop for that? They had a sign on the side of the road as I was driving and it was like, see a 220 cubic ton excavator bucket. I'd be like, I have to pee anyway. Let's stop. Anyway.
I wonder how fast, like we talked before in this podcast about how long, like it took them so long to build the Trent Severn Canal waterway that like transporting goods by boat just was useless at that point. So yay for connecting all those lakes and ruining ecosystems. But I wonder how fast the Big Muskie could have gotten that done. Let's say it's like waterproof, which I know it's not, but just like that thing, just making one giant trench, it'd probably be wider than the canal is right now anyways.
Well, it would do it one scoop at a time. It would just be like,
oh, Skoogog just disappeared. Just drained into one bucket worth.
Anyway, that's my random interesting fishing fact. I tried to transition into fishing, but sorry guys, it didn't happen. But
so you're gonna lose points on the wild stretch to try and make that in any form of fishing fact. But on the interesting level, I did enjoy that.
Nice.
It's a pass.
I'll take it. You know what? Right now we're in February. One of my least favorite months. I'm just trying to get through the month. I can't think of anything good.
And on that note, we decided to do an episode to our main topic where we didn't have to think at all.
I've actually wanted to do this episode for a long time, though. A long time. Yeah.
Jesse and I have talked about this. So you may have heard before in the podcast of myself doing interesting fishing facts featuring Vlad Ivanov and the Fisherman's Bible. Had a lot of cool, like choice little tidbits, cool history. There will be some more coming out of that book on later fishing facts and stuff like that. There's a couple more that I'm working on. But in the meantime, Jesse and I, we grew up, well, besides calling each other like every Tuesday to talk about the Bass Pro Shops catalog, we would often just like trade books and onto our Outdoors magazines and In Fisherman and the Scientific Angler and like all these different things with each other. And we just like catch up on reading all this stuff. We couldn't get enough of fishing growing up. We still can't. But back then, that was pre-YouTube days. So you couldn't go watch a video with like Jay Siemens or Avid Ontario Anglers, how to catch shore salmon or something. It's like, well, how do I do this? Time to go to the local library and buy a book. Or in this case, this is the first one I ever bought. Go to Zellers and buy it for $19.99, which was a fair bit of money when I was a kid. But yeah, so we're going to actually feature some of the books that Jesse and I grew up reading. And we're going to talk about how some, I tell you, I'm going to go on a little tangent in a second about the artwork, but I'm excited to talk about this. I know Jesse has talked about it or has wanted to do this for a while. Fishing has changed in the past. Yes, pages are falling out of that one. I know that. The spine's absolutely ruined. We have so many different like viewpoints on fishing, or fishing has changed so many times over in the past 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years that we're going to kind of compare as to the knowledge that we learned from these books or tried to learn and try to apply. Is it still valuable today, for one? And what things remain the same? What can we actually like put still in use? And what things are just a little outdated and kind of just fun to look at and be like, haha, remember when we thought this would work? So to start us off, I'm gonna do the first book. And I figured I'd start off with largemouth bass. Like I said, this is the first book I ever got. It's The Freshwater Angler. I've been working on trying to collect as many of these books as I can. I've got another one here, another Freshwater Angler we're going to look at in a bit. Jesse's got a couple of them. I have a few more on the shelf. These were like the bread and butter of like fishing books back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Like the classic
I have that one
too. Spine was the old one. So this one here, I think every book we're going to say when it's from. This one was from 1983.
Ooh.
Was its first copyright. Yeah. What I wanted to go into is the artwork in these books is the best artwork in a fishing book I think I've ever seen. Part of it's nostalgia, I'm sure, but like some of the photos they got of like underwater photos of, I'll tell you one thing I love is when they're talking about the different techniques or like how to retrieve baits, and it shows like the time capture of like a crankbait coming by. It's just like it's one photo, but it shows like 17 crankbaits in a row of seeing how the action of how it, this trajectory in the water. These always fascinated me as a kid, just the photos of it. But that's the biggest aside I want to do, because it's not really about fishing. That's just the aesthetics of it. I love.
I have to think though, like back in the day, this was a long time ago. Like this is like more than 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the photos are like amazing. So it's like, did they literally have like scuba divers down there taking pictures in like a tank? Like this couldn't have been in like nature. Like, like, remember at Barclays, they had that big indoor bass tank, something like that they could get like close-ups of fish grabbing lures and stuff, because there's no way you do that in nature. Like I know like Dave Mercer does that now, but like technology is a lot different. But like back in the day, they didn't have like digital cameras back in the late 70s. I wonder how they did it. If you're an old person and you took cool outdoor photographs back in the 70s and 80s, let us know how you did it, because I don't believe it. It wasn't like CG. It wasn't like AI that didn't exist yet.
I know the Fishing Canada guys, where they started on their fishing show doing like underwater shots. They had a whole plexiglass aquarium essentially they put over top of the camera guy and the camera, because a high quality underwater camera just didn't exist. So to get underwater shots, they had the guy in basically like a clear bell diving setup where the camera is like on his shoulder inside of a glass cube. And he's underwater shooting through the glass underwater. Like that's insane.
That's crazy.
The first thing I wanted to talk about with this book, and again, if you're seeing video, you don't have to, I'll describe it to you. We've talked about this series of photos before on the podcast. Jesse knows exactly what I'm talking about. These are a white fish tank. They put a bunch of 2-pound bass in it, and they're showing how the bass in a plain white tank with nothing in it, they're just scattered all around. The board over one edge creating a shadow. All the bass are in the shadow. You put a pile of rocks, all the bass are on the rocks. You put a painted line, so no structure, just a difference. The bass are clustered around the painted line. That was, I will say, that something that jumped out at me as interesting when I was a kid, and is probably the most valuable piece of information I've ever gleaned from this book, is how bass, and any fish really, but how they relate to structure, to something different. And you talk to guides nowadays and that we've had in the podcast, and what do they tell you? The lake's full of weeds, and then you see like a rock pile. Guess where the fish are going to be? On the thing that's different. So like this experiment that they had done has stuck with me for forever. Like I vividly remember all these photos because I used to read this book over and over and over and over. But that's something that absolutely would come into play even today with fishing knowledge. But I found a lot of this stuff, these books are hard to read nowadays. And it's not just because, I'm used to Instagram reels where it's like 30 seconds and then I'm bored. Like, but there's so many different things. Like it talks about where to fish, and it's like strip pits, eutrophic lakes, mesotrophic lakes. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care the scientific name of how this lake was geologically founded 1 million years ago. Tell me where bass are and how to catch them. And that's about half the book. I find is in reality, like maybe it's useful. I don't think so. I don't think it really matters to me to know the type of the lake, because there's so many more general rules that can be used to find fish that I don't care what kind of weird thermocline volcanic eruption causes this lake to have this quality. Like bass are relating to structure. You already taught me that in the first 4 pages.
I think too, like a lot of the lakes that say, like, if you live in a certain area, a lot of the lakes are going to be very similar, right? So like, say you're born in the Kawarthas, you could fish a lot of the different Kawartha lakes, and they're realistically very similar structures and weeds and stuff like that. Then if you go like up north, a lot of the lakes are shield lakes. And if you go, down by us, a lot of the lakes are shallow and weedy. So like maybe the area that you grow up in, that's the kind of lake that you fish. And maybe you're used to fishing shallow, weedy lakes and rivers, and that's what you fish and that's what you learn, right? So you don't necessarily care about shield lakes or other lakes because you may never fish that kind of lake. But then when you try to get more well-rounded, like me and Andrew, I remember a few times over the years where, again, we grew up fishing around this area, like a lot of like weedy lakes. And then I remember the first few times we fished like vastly different areas. Like remember the first time we fished like Lake St. Clair and we were like, what the heck is this? Or the first time I fished St. Lawrence River, I'm like, holy crap, it's so clear. Or when we went up and fished shield lakes for muskies, I was like, this is insanely different than what we've done. And it's very humbling because you're like, I have no idea what to do. But then people that live there are like, oh, this is normal.
Yeah, it's weird for them
So,
to come to Kawarthas and be like, wait, there's weeds everywhere? Like,
yeah. All they have is treble hook baits. You're like, no.
One of the things that I think ages the worst in these books, I'm sure it's going to be a theme when we go throughout them, but talking about the gear that they feature. And again, it's because gear and technology is the thing that has changed the most, right?
Yeah.
The first thing when it talks about equipment is like bass boats. It's like, yes, for the layman. But bass boats, it has a picture of this guy on a Ranger with, I have no idea what brand trolling motor it is. He's got a flasher on the deck. Not a single, like, that's it. All electronics is a flasher and a bow mount trolling motor with a foot control, which was cutting edge.
That's all you need.
And he's got 2 rods on the deck. That's it. He's got like 3 plano fold out tray tackle box things like the old style and an old Evan Root on the back. There is this, again, this is a Ranger bass boat. And you think of Ranger today, it's like, oh, there's storage. Like, I see maybe 3 hatches on this thing. Like, there is no rod locker. There is, I'm sure there's a live well. There's the battery storage, and that's about it in this thing.
Yeah.
Like, they did not have what we are used to today. Even if, you don't have a bass boat, at least you're aware of what's out there. We've all been staring at the nitro boats when we go into Bass Pro Shops and being like, dreaming of one day somehow having a windfall of money. You're like, I'm buying one of those.
The sad thing is that Ranger boat back in the early 80s probably was like $12,000.
Yeah.
Now it's like 120 grand. Yeah.
Even stuff like it's talking about like foot controls. Some of the photos in here, like this old guide stick trolling motor is still handle control. It's on the bow, but it's the handle control pointing backwards. It's not a foot control. I'm like, this is a legit bass boat all glittered out with just a trolling motor with a handle on the front of it. I'm like, that's awesome. That's relatable nowadays. I love it. But talking about, again, like some of the stuff, I was surprised to look back on this, and it talked about putting the transducer on the trolling motor head. And I was like, that's, like, they have trolling motors now where they have the mount directly for like live scope and stuff like that built into the trolling motor head, or the transducer itself is part of the trolling motor head. And here it's like, mount it there using, what does it say? Attach it to the trolling motor using electrical tape or a hose clamp.
People still do
professional. But again, like that's the trickle down of that. It's been more beneficial to have your transducer right below where you're standing rather than 10 feet, 15 feet behind you on the back of the boat, right? Again, the principles that they have in this book, they still apply, but there's no mention of live scope. So some people will really appreciate that when they read a book like this, because the most cutting edge thing this talks about is some liquid crystals, as in LCD displays, have a 3D readout, or also called side finders. So it's like side imaging, but like the most basic form. And even here it says that it's often gives misleading signals though. So it was not very good technology at the time of this printing. But I was kind of surprised. Side imaging was already starting to happen back at this time. But, they have the Lawrence flashers. It goes into how to read a flasher. And I'll tell you, I got more confused after reading this book on how to read a flasher than before I read the book on how to read a flasher. It wasn't until I actually saw one in person, like saw the lights moving, and I was like, okay, now this makes sense. But the photos just don't make any sense.
Some things you just have to see.
Yeah. And I remember Jesse and I had seen this one thing here talking about rods. And again, rod technology has changed. Everything here talks about a graphite rod or, solid fiberglass. But again, it's like use a 5-foot pistol grip bait casting rod for, skipping under docks. I'm like, that's cool. We don't do that anymore. Times have changed. But it talks about testing a rod's sensitivity. Do you remember how this book told you how to test a rod's sensitivity?
Wasn't it like putting it on someone's throat?
Yeah, it's like put the tip of the rod on someone's throat, like on their Adam's apple, and then have them talk, and you should be able to feel the vibrations. And I tell you, Jesse and I tried this. I mean, you just ended up stabbing each other in the throat with rods.
I still can't speak properly. Imagine that, you just see a scar on my Adam's apple.
Yeah.
Imagine that, just going to Bass Pro or like the tackle shop, and then some guy walks by and you're like, here, put it on his throat. Sing to me. He's like, who are you?
But like, I can't tell how many hours I would just look at these books. The pages that I always liked the most was always about the tackle.
Yeah.
That was the most interesting because I didn't, most oftentimes when I would say reread the books, I wouldn't really read everything. Like I said, talking about different lakes, I'd never read that part again. I read it once, didn't understand it, don't care. But I would reread the tackle sections and look at all the pictures of all the different soft plastics and the rigs and the different lures. And I would try and collect them all, like a Pokemon set, but in real life with lures. Thinking that if I could get every lure that's featured in these books, I too could catch these huge largemouth bass that these guys are catching down in Florida, here in Ontario. But there are some good techniques. Yeah, no,
it did not happen.
There are some good techniques though. Like, it did teach me a lot. Like, that's a whole section on spinner baits, how to, either burning spinner baits, where to fish them, what weeds you can fish them through, even how to tune a spinner bait by like angling the top arm. Like, all that stuff is beneficial. And if you read that today, it's just as useful today as it was back then, if you aren't aware of those techniques, right? But some of the lures that they have, and again, things have changed, but I have always wanted, and it's because of this book, I wanted a spoon plug, because they call crankbaits subsurface plugs, and they have surface lures and stuff. They feature 2 hollow body frogs for surface lures. One is a snag proof, and the other one is the man's frog. But like, that's nowadays, you think like largemouth bass fishing, you'd probably have 17 frogs in this page if they printed a book today.
Yeah.
The Smithwick's Devil's Horse is featured prominently in this book, which I do love that topwater bait. But it talks about this one bait that I have wanted forever, the spoon plug. And it's odd that whenever I think of spoon plugs, I often would think of like lake trout fishing or something like that, because they can easily get deep. But this is a book about largemouth bass, and it's like the spoon plug. Like, it shows how popular that type of bait was. And I guess because they would sink and get snagged easily, there are not many of them around, because I cannot find them at any tackle swaps or trade shows. I cannot find any spoon plugs, but that's still on my bucket list of something to find. And it's 99% reason is because I saw it in this book as an 8-year-old kid. And I was like, I need to get that spoon plug because it looks cool. I'm going to catch a bass with it.
Didn't that guy, I think his name was like Perry, he wrote that whole book about fishing like deep structure, and spoon plug was like one of his main techniques. And that was like back in the day when most bass anglers only fish shallow structure because they didn't have electronics and stuff to figure out how to catch them deep. And he was like one of the first like innovators to figure out how to catch bass deep, like on drop offs and stuff like that, and deep structure. Yeah, the spoon plug. Yeah, I've never seen one myself in real life. If you have one, or if you know where to get them, let us know, because I'd love to see Andrew snag one on the bottom and lose it, start crying.
But again, that's pretty much the most of it. It goes into like how to catch bass, mainly going into, again, where they're located, where, to use different techniques. Nowadays in our fishing, not career really, but our fishing journey, I know not to cast a treble hooked bait, directly into weeds, or, fish a jig in a foot of water. Like, there's different things. Yes, I understand just inherently where to and not to fish things. But if you are completely new to fishing, something like this, like, you can still find these books in the library. You can pick them up now for like $4 at Value Village or Goodwill, whatever. Like, find a place. If you see any of them and you are new at fishing, there is still information to be gleaned from this. A lot of it is from the States. So if you don't live down in the southern states where a lot of these, things like fishing these docks and skipping these lures, all the photos in here are pretty much down in the States in these books, I find. But there is value to be had on the information given here. Even of fish behavior, like with weather, we do know a lot more now. Like I say, even with the invention of live scope, we've learned a lot more in the past 10 years of how fish change with the weather or react to different presentations, because we can have a better view, literally, of where the fish moves to and stuff like that. But back then, there was some good information talking about, wind pushing bait fish around, talking about how, colder temperatures, bass will often drop deeper. So we talk about that. There's still tried and true methods, that reasonings that we use even today. So it's not like they had it all wrong. They did the best they could with the information on largemouth bass at the time. But
that was like the beginning of when they were starting to really understand bass behavior, I find.
Yes.
So a lot of those techniques that they have in there, it's like, yeah, they'll still work, but we've invented better ways to do it.
We definitely have.
Yeah.
Now there's a thing called a Senko, and it works great.
It's true. All these books, I was gonna mention some of the top baits that are popular now. They are not in any of these books, which is pretty interesting.
There's not a single chatterbait mentioned in this book, and I'm upset by that.
So I have a few books, and since we're just talking about lures quick, we're gonna have to go through these quick. We're not gonna be able to spend 25 minutes like Andrew just did on one book. This podcast is gonna be like 7 hours long. It's okay. I love that book.
That's the most important book to me. The other two I don't have as much information about.
Oh, that's good. This was the Freshwater Angler book. This one was a slightly newer one than the one Andrew had. This was Fishing with Artificial Lures. Mm-hmm. It had a musky-sized jitterbug on the front with a pike right underneath it. I bought this book, not when I was a kid. I bought this book, I always write when I bought it in the front of the book, December 4th, 2010. So not super old, but it's old. But this particular book was written, for the first publishing was in 2000. So it's 25 years old. So I'm going to go through quick because this book is all about freshwater fishing with artificial lures. We're just going to go quick through some of these lures and be like, have you ever heard of this? Or does this still exist? Or why weren't these things mentioned, right? So the funny thing is on the back of this book, it says, many anglers carry dozens of lures in their tackle box. I think he means dozens of dozens.
Yeah. Amateur hour.
This book is pretty cocky. It's like, by reading Fishing with Artificial Lures, that's this book, you will learn how to catch fish with every lure in your tackle box.
bold of you to assume I can.
And it says, a tackle box is worthless if it's filled with artificial lures you don't know how to use. Mine is pretty useless then at that point. So to save time, and I did actually get some sticky notes, and I went through this whole book. Again, you could probably do a whole podcast legit on just this one book or just any of these books. But it's funny when you go through it. Starts with equipment. I just wanted to show this quick. And it says rods and reels, but it has bait casting rods. And the reel, if you're familiar with this reel, low profile reels were just getting popular. They still use a lot of round reels. So the reel that they're promoting in this book is the Abu Garcia Ambassador C3 5600, which is just a big can size reel. And that apparently was like perfection at that time. They look pretty sweet. But anyway, I'll go to my first thing here. It goes through a bunch of lures, starts off with spinners and spoons. A lot of the spinners and stuff, I feel like there's not a lot of innovation spinners because they pretty much nailed it when they first came out. Like you have the Mepps Aglia, the Blue Fox Vibrix. Those are in every tackle shop. You have the Panther Martin, the Rooster Tail. Nothing has changed there. So 25 years. Now the funny one is I'm going to start off quick with spinner baits. Now spinner baits are kind of a bait that I'd say they're still popular, but they're not as popular as they used to be because chatterbaits kind of really ripped out a bunch of the spinnerbait guys, including myself. Me and Andrew used to be big spinnerbait guys. Now we check a lot of chatterbaits. I'm just getting back into throwing spinnerbaits. But it's funny, it points out 5 spinnerbaits, and none of these I have ever seen except one. And the one spinnerbait, it's not even really a spinnerbait. It's the Johnson Beetle Spin.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's in every single book.
Yeah. The Johnson Beetle Spin, which, by the way, it's a great bait for like panfish and bass. But every other bait here, it doesn't exist, or the brand doesn't exist anymore. What happens in 25 years? There's lots of tips about adding tinsel to spinnerbait skirts, or adding a trailer hook. These are all tips that are still valuable today. And it explains the difference in different blades. Like, willow leafs, they spin faster, they get deeper, they have a lot of flash. Colorado has more thump, they fish shallower. All those are good tips. I think a lot of times we think when you're into a hobby for a long time, you may think, oh, well, that's obvious. But if you're just getting into the sport, this is all stuff that we all had to learn at one time. When it gets into fishing with buzzbaits, I'll ask this to Andrew, but like if I said to you, what's one tip to make your buzzbait better? What are you going to do to your buzzbait on the way to the lake? What do you do?
You hang it out the window, you strap it to your antenna, you make it get squeaky.
Yeah. It's like, put your buzzbait on the way to the lake outside your window. When the blade spins fastest, the lure is tuned properly. Sweet. Anyway,
that book about fishing artificial lures, I would say, is probably going to be one of the most beneficial ones, because it's taking the part that is most, useful to the common knowledge and being like, this is what the whole book is about. Presentation. It's like,
absolutely.
Excellent.
The one that I thought was interesting, because we mentioned how, there's chatterbaits were not in this book, because 25 years ago, chatterbaits did not exist. But one bait that is also another absolute staple in most bass anglers and other anglers' tackle box is the whopper plopper, or like, prop bait, we would say, right? Mm-hmm. Now, they have a whole chapter or a whole page here on prop baits. Now, prop baits are extremely popular. The whopper plopper, it ain't in this. But I'll tell you what's in this. There is a tail rotating bait. That's why everyone's like, oh, the whopper plopper is the original. Anytime someone comes out with a whopper plopper style bait, like here, this is the new Rapala Claptail. I bought this and someone's like, oh, it's just a knockoff of a whopper plopper. I'm like, dude, the whopper plopper is not the original. It is not even close to being the original. Here's one in this book from 25 years ago. This is the Gooch's Tallywhacker. The Gooch's Tallywhacker, trademark, by the way. It is a tail rotating, basically it's a whopper plopper, but from 25 plus years ago. But it was out before the whopper plopper.
I'm going to call all whopper ploppers now tallywhackers.
The tallywhacker.
Fishing that tallywhacker, they go plop, 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 plop.
They did literally get this right, though. I'd say this is 100% true. Prop baits are the most versatile of all surface lures. I used to be against whopper ploppers, I think just because they were popular, and then I started using them, and I was like, they're popular for a reason. They work.
The head and dying spook was an amazing prop bait with that. That's one of my favorites, I would say.
It's not even in this because it was probably discontinued before this book even came out, Andrew.
Yes, it was.
Now, I did find this one interesting. Speaking of how some types of lures evolve and others don't, like, remember the spinnerbaits? None of them in this book you can buy at the store anymore. But when it gets to crawlers, we're talking about crawlers like jitterbugs, like that. It's a very small category of lures, and there hasn't really been a lot of innovation. The three ones that it mentions here, they're all still available and probably are still the most popular crawlers that you can buy. So you have the high fin creeper, which is, I have seen those. They're not as popular as the jitterbug, but then you have the jitterbug. Every store has jitterbugs. And the head and crazy crawler. Every
I was going to say crazy crawlers there, 100%.
It's funny. It's such an old category, and there hasn't been anyone that's like, here's the thing. If someone said, make a crawler, you look at the jitterbug and you fish it, you're like, that's perfection. There's no sense trying. Like, it's already done. I appreciate that. But it's funny going through the crankbaits, the poppers and all that stuff. And a lot of these bait companies, they do not exist anymore. And then the ones that do exist from some of these, like the minnow plugs, you have the original floating Rapala, the Storm Thunderstick, the Smithwick Suspending Pro Rogue. Those are all baits that are still staples. So I find that very interesting that some of these, it's like, never heard of them. Or like they went out of business 30 years ago. And other ones, they're super old, but they're still slamming fish. So it really depends on the bait. Just because you have old baits in your tackle box, or say you inherit your grandpa's tackle box or something, those baits are going to smash fish. And if you're lucky in trolling plugs, look at what's mentioned. And
the spoon plug.
Yeah. So Andrew, one day, he hopes to get one of those. When it gets into musky jerk baits, of course, we have the Bobby bait and the Suic, baits that I both own and baits that are still available. So a lot of this stuff, it's still available at your local tackle shop. It stands the test of time, right? But a lot of these baits, not so much. Anyway, I could go through this whole book. If you ever see this book, it's called The Freshwater Angler Fishing with Artificial Lures. It is a good read. It's interesting to see the old stuff. And again, like Andrew said, the photography in this book is on point. Absolutely amazing. It's super good. Some of these shots, I'm like, how did they get this? Was this guy literally like suspending over a tree, waiting for a bass to come up and hit a frog just as the guy casts it there? Like, come on. So anyway, that's a good one. But yeah, it's funny looking through that book and being like, how many of these lures do I own? And I have a lot of lures. Like I have tons of fishing lures. And the number isn't very much compared to that book. So maybe we should write a modern book.
Because I like to collect older lures as well, though. I will trawl around at Cancast, for example, is a good show, or at tackle swaps and stuff like that. And I'm looking for old baits that I see in these books because I want to use them. I want to try them because I can't just go to the store and buy them anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to say, like, there's a number of them when I look through them, like, I own that. I own the Head and Sonic. Like, I own that thing.
It's true. That's actually a good segue. Why don't we talk quick about Cancast? Because one of the things that we love about Cancast, which is, again, it's a fishing show. It's Canada's biggest fishing show. And this year's actually, we always say it's going to be bigger than ever, and it always is. But this year it's actually physically larger.
Arguably, maybe not arguably, reality, it's double in size.
It is massive. It's two arenas.
It's awesome. Yeah.
2 separate buildings with 4 pads. Or like 4 areas of tackle.
Yes.
Rods, reels, you have guides. They have a tackle swap. And that's what Andrew's talking about. The tackle swap area, we have found some really cool stuff. Stuff like the first year we went, I think it was the first or second year we went to Cancast. Actually, it was the first year because it wasn't even called Cancast. It was called the Peterborough Tackle Swap or something like that. And I bought a Daiwa Millionaire CVZ made in Japan bait casting reel.
Yep.
These aren't the cheap ones. These are the ones made in Japan, fully anodized aluminum, left-handed, just the way I wanted it, a 250 size. So it was like perfect little mini swim bait size reel. And I kept like looking at it. I put it down. The guy's like, "Oh, you like it?" And I was like, I don't need it. Came back, looked at it again, walked away, went back, looked at it. He's like, "Just give me $30 for it." I was like, "All right," slam the money down. So like you can find some really cool stuff. A lot of people selling off their extra stuff. A lot of people are, they collect, like Andrew collects lures, and eventually you get to the point where like, I got to sell some of this stuff. So you can find some really cool stuff that you can't find anywhere.
That's right. In a few years, you'll probably find me behind one of the tables at Cancast, full of a bunch of old tackle boxes.
Yeah, the tackle swap, it's pretty insane. Bring cash for sure. Bring a little bit of cash because you're going to go through and there's, for instance, like I'm always looking for if you're someone that fishes muskie or pike or even bass. Rapala makes this lure called the Super Shad Wrap. You've probably seen it. They sell them now, but the old ones made in Finland are amazing. Something about them, they're just better, like in every way. There's a certain color, it's called brown crawdad. It's a discontinued color. Rapala does not make anymore for some reason. It is amazing. And I have found at Cancast over the years 3 of them. It's like orange. It's like imagine like an orangey silver fire tiger with brown on the back.
Orange fire tiger.
It sounds weird. That color is absolutely insane. And he's just like, I was looking through them and I was like, "You got any of the brown crawdad?" And he just looked at me and he's like, "Give me a second." He like goes under his table, starts digging out, pulls out 2 of them. He's like, "You know your colors." And I was like, "Give me those." I've got a lot of fish on those. And now I have 3 of them. So I'm pretty happy. But you can find lures like that. And you'd be surprised how much stuff there is. Bring lots of money.
And again, I'll mention this as well. It's actually another Rapala bait. And I'll say this only because I do have a decent stockpile of them now personally. So I don't mind sharing it. But the Ratlin wrap. The old ones, again, made in Finland, they have a very distinct rattle sound. And they sound, there's a new Rapala crankbait, actually Lupus crankbait, which has a similar sound actually, I find. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm curious to try it. But the old ones had a much more tinnier sound with the shot that were inside of it. And I find it produces way better than the more modern Ratlin wraps. And you can only get them if you buy them used, if you buy them at the tackle swap. So that's another one that I always have my eye out for, of different colors they don't have or sizes. And like, I love those.
Yeah. Here's an example of a lure that I bought. This is a Euro style. This is that brand Salmo. I'm pronouncing that right, but they're made in Poland. This is like a Euro style glide bait. It's like 5 inches long. It's like 3 or 4 ounces big. And it's not the darter. This is the fatter one. I think it's called the fatty darter. I don't know what the heck it's called. This is old, and you reel it in, and it just has this like cool meandering swim to it. You can also twitch it back and forth, but that's something you'd never find in Canada at any store. I got this for $5. I sharpened the hooks. I'm like, I'm going to use this for muskie in the Quarthus. Like, you can find really cool stuff. Every year, I'm like, I'm not going to buy more stuff. Like when I go to the tackle swap, every year we fill Andrew's backpack. He wears a backpack and I'm just like pushing stuff in. I'm like, "Don't put your hands in here. There's hooks everywhere." And he's like, "Oh yeah." At the end of the day, we're trying to like cut it out of his backpack. I'm like, no, that's mine. That's mine.
This year I need to remember to bring a couple empty tackle trays with me.
Yeah, you should.
Just so I can put stuff in.
Anyway, that's the tackle swap at Cancast. Again, Cancast, it's going to be also included in with your ticket price is going to be Muskie Odyssey, which is a huge muskie show. All the stuff, rods, reels, tackle shops like a Zoko, like places that sell only muskie stuff, stuff for your boat. Also a lot of seminars if you're into that kind of thing. Cancast is also going to have a lot of seminars. So if you're going to go and you're like, "You know what? I don't have a lot of cash. I'm just going to buy a few things." go to the seminars. You will learn a lot of stuff there. So we're really excited. We're building up to talking about Cancast. We're not going to go crazy because me and Andrew will go crazy, but it's going to be a heck of a show. And make sure you buy your ticket. I'll put a link below. Buy your ticket, because when you buy it, you get entered into the giveaways. And the guy who runs Cancast has the most insane giveaways. I think last year someone won a live scope unit, which is like $5,000 or something like that. There was like $2,000 Megabass giveaway.
What was that rod that one got Ryan? Was it Ryan who won the rod? Or buddy?
I forget. One of our like Instagram buddies won like an $800 Megabass rod. Yeah. And he's like, I don't know what to do with it. I was like, dude, I'd fish that till I broke it, man. I'd fish it like it owed me money.
Yep.
Every other rod I owned would feel like a piece of crap at that point, but I would still fish it.
It's the best prize pool I've ever seen for the cost of one ticket price. And again, you're automatically entered into it without additional fees. It's the best like prize pool I've ever seen. Every single year. It's awesome.
And there's going to be a lot of cool vendors there too. Again, we're going to get into this more, but one that was just recently announced, Jay Siemens. He's going to be there at Cancast. And I'm pretty sure nearby Jay Siemens somewhere is going to be Wes from Wham Baits. So while you're seeing Jay, there's a big lineup. Just go over to Wes, buy some baits, say hi, and then go over and see Jay. Anyway, let's get into the next book. We're going over time. Go quick.
All right. Next book. This book isn't going to take too long. It's probably the smallest of the freshwater angler books. Again, freshwater angler. This is Modern Methods of Ice Fishing.
Modern. How modern is it?
The year is, wait for it, 1999.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 7 years old. Just a wee baby. But this book, I have to say, is probably the most up-to-date freshwater angler book I've ever read.
I think that's the newest one ever.
Well, yours was 2000.
Oh, true.
Or the original printing was older, though. The original printing was older, right. So 1999, it talks about float suits, talks about ice safety, having ice cleats, having the ice picks. We just talked about that when we talked about ice fishing on this podcast. It's still happening. Talking about fish in their environment, all the same stuff, where they are, perched. So they're on mud bottoms about 12 to 20 feet. Like it's in the book. That's there. Everything is perfect. Ice fishing equipment and how to use it. Sure, the clothing's a little bit dated. It has it has a nice plug for Cabela's with their phone number and website here. It's like, ice chaps, keep the water from reaching your clothes when drilling holes. It's literally like plastic chaps you put on your shins. It's kind of hilarious. But so besides being dated, the technology in ice fishing, I've realized, has not changed. I would be completely content with using anything from this book and not feel at all like I'm at a disadvantage on the ice from anyone else. Like all the rods and reels they have are, just simple, kind of like a fly reel kind of thing, which is what everyone wants to use nowadays for their, straight dropping their bait down and reeling straight up like a straight wind reel. They have bait casters. They talk about spinning reels, multiple different types of rods, goes over into ice lines and stuff like that. It's perfect. It's still what we use. Talks about the tip ups and rattle reels still use. That's all equipment you can still go out there and buy. It teaches you how to make a couple different things as well, a couple rattle reel combinations. The tackle, the cicada, it's a blade bait, little jigs, spoons, jigging minnow, all this stuff is the exact same stuff that we use. Even mini tungsten jigs, teardrop jigs and stuff like that. That's all in here. The ice huts they're talking about is wood ice huts, or it talks about the portable shelters, the mobile shelters. The shelter of choice is the fish trap, which is the predecessor to the clam style. Yeah. Where instead of folding off to the side, it just folds off to the back of the sled. But it's a flip over hut. This.
I think that brand actually became clam.
Yeah. Yeah. It talks about ice augers. One thing which shows how dated this is, which is really cool, it has gas augers, which again, you can buy. It talks about hand augers, you can buy. Then it has an electric auger, which I wasn't sure if they were going to feature, but it has a couple leads to go into a 12-volt battery. I'm like, that is hilarious. Imagine lugging an old lead acid 12-volt battery that in the freezing temperatures would be probably at 5 milliamp hour. The flashers they talk about here, again, as something like we talked about, yes, you can use live scope on the ice and it'd be great. It's really well suited for it. The next best thing besides a live scope, what would you say it is? To have the next best electronic on the
A flasher.
Flasher, yeah. Vexillor flashers.
Yeah.
Those are like the dream flasher right there.
And they haven't changed.
Okay.
That exact model is probably still available.
Yes. What about the next best piece of equipment, electronic equipment that we like to use on the water, on ice fishing? Besides having a flasher.
A camera?
Camera. Oh, look at that. Underwater camera.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so everything they have in here, they have GPSs, maps, talks about like the ice fishing accessories, like everything here, I can't get over how the same it is.
Yeah.
So this is an entertaining book to look at and read. The techniques that it talks about, how to fish, how to use different jigs, all make sense for going for perch, for going for crappie, all that stuff. It is exactly right. And the one thing I wanted to get into is we learned recently how to keep fish. We were talking with
Lentel Outdoors.
I think so. And he's telling us how to freeze fish and prevent freezer burn in fish. I've owned this book for a while. And at the very last page, it talks about freezing fish. Talks about cleaning fish, keeping fish. Talks about freezing fish. It says, divide the meat into serving size fillets, steaks, or pieces. Then mix 2 tablespoons of ascorbic acid, available in drugstores, with 1 quart of water. Oftentimes, we don't have to do that. I don't know if you can even still buy that. I don't know. But then it says to submerge them in water-filled plastic containers in blocks. Once it's frozen, you pop it out, wrap it in freezer paper, and then in aluminum foil for long-term freezing, and this will avoid freezer burn. So freezing fish in like solid blocks of ice prevents freezer burn. I could have been doing this for years, and I never bothered to read the last page. And I'm a little frustrated because the amount of fish that has gone bad in freezers over the years because of freezer burn is sad, because it's delicious and it should be eaten. But that one I was just surprised at, looking over the books and kind of choosing which ones to talk about, that pretty much everything in there is directly relatable to what you can go out and buy and use today. I'm like, that's actually awesome to have something that old still be useful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a 26-year-old book. So
yeah,
it's pretty old. I'm going to take this opportunity to crack open a non-alcoholic beer.
Ooh.
This marks 4 years of no alcohol, boys. Terrible.
This marks 2 hours of no alcohol for me.
So I thought that I could go through this last book, and then that will probably be our time. And then maybe Andrew can get like his favorite point from his last book, and then we'll probably be it. This book is actually one of my favorite books. Apparently, I wrote this in the front of the book that my mom and dad bought this book for me May 9th, 2003. So it's old. I'm just like, I'm old. This is host of TV's The Real Fishing Show, Bob Izumi's 101 Best Fishing Tips. Mm-hmm. This book is absolutely goated. And Bob Izumi was the actual GOAT back in the day when you watched. This is one of my favorite fishing shows. Mm-hmm. I remember my dad would always bug me when we went to the Sportsman Show or the fishing show, and Bob Izumi's there. He'd go, get Bob Izumi's autograph. I never got it. I should bring it, because usually he comes to Cancast. I don't know if he's coming this year, but I should bring this book to Cancast and make Bob Izumi sign this book. I've had a few people be like, yeah, you need to get Bob Izumi to come on the podcast. So Bob, sorry, that sounds weird. Bob Izumi is the kind of name
Mr.
you have to say
Izumi.
The whole thing. Mr. Izumi, Bob Izumi, come on the podcast. We'll talk about this book. But I read this thing cover to cover. I lent it to Andrew for a few years. Then he eventually gave it back. I read it again. I have
begrudgingly.
Yeah, like this thing is falling apart. It's full of, and the cool thing is Bob Izumi's from Ontario, mm-hmm. Canada. A lot of these tips are like localized tips, which I love, because a lot of these books that we're looking through, it's like, oh, tips for fishing hyacinth mats in Florida. That's cool.
Flipping
I will never
roots.
do that. Yeah, I will never do that. It's 101 tips. I'm just going to go through some of them. I could literally spend hours just telling you about things, but I thought some of the stuff that's...
Read the book live on the air.
Yeah. One of the things that is funny is just some of the stuff that they mention Tip number 16, kneeling and reeling. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Kneeling and reeling. So I'm going to read parts of this because I can't say it any better. It's like, if only I could get my crankbait to dive down an extra foot or so. Boy, could I catch fish then. Haven't you ever said that, Andrew?
Always.
Then Bob goes into saying, let's say you're casting a big, wide-lipped crankbait that normally dives down to about 12 feet, but the fish are in 15 or 16 feet. What do you do? So the point of kneeling and reeling, instead of holding your rod at a normal angle, it basically wants you to get down on your knees in your boat, kneeling, and stick your rod down into the water as you're reeling. And that will give you the extra few feet to do that. And it's funny, he's talking about how he's fishing with one of his buddies who's a CFL, a Canadian Fishing League veteran, Blaine Schmidt. And they were fishing, doing a commercial for the Shimano Carbomax rods. You ever heard of those? No. These are probably very old rods. So anyway, they're talking about how they did this and they caught a bunch of fish. So it's pretty funny. That technique, I know back in the day, like this book, I forgot to mention when this came out. This came out in 2000. So this is a 25 plus year old book. Back then, rods weren't as long, so maybe kneeling and reeling was a bigger deal. Now, oftentimes you hear about guys fishing like deep, big crankbaits, and they're using like legitimate 8-foot cranking rods. So you get that extra length anyway. The rod's going to be in the water because it's so long. But I think it's funny how back in the day that was, they needed to get some depth, obviously. Just stick your rod down further. Now we're lazy. We're just like, well, we'll just make the rod longer. That was one thing. The other thing that me and Andrew have been doing this for years, and so has so many people, but this is one thing I especially learned from Bob Izumi, was the 1-2 punch. Tip number 21. So we've talked a lot about the 1-2 punch. Basically, if you're fishing like a frog on the surface and the fish blows up and misses it, what do? Well, you chuck something in after it. That's the punch, right? The 1-2 punch. You chuck in something slower. Oftentimes, one of my favorite 1-2 punch baits is like a Senko. Like you got a slow bait that slowly quivers down. And usually, I think when the fish misses a frog, even if it's not your own fault, or maybe you pull it out of their mouth, it is your fault. That fish, I don't think they understand what happened. Like fish, they're intelligent, but they don't have the ability to reason. They're not like, oh, well, clearly that fish just jumped up to the moon. Like they think that the frog jumped and it's landed somewhere. So oftentimes they're still kind of looking around for it. And just as they're looking around, all of a sudden, well, a Senko flops down in front of it and seductively wiggles in front of it and it eats it. Oftentimes, casting the frog back, you can catch them. Sometimes, if you have a bait that's slower that you can just chuck in and tempt them that way, you can do that. Now, the bad thing about the 1-2 punch that Bob doesn't really go into is the fact that oftentimes your fishing buddy selfishly does the 2 part of the 1-2 punch. So I will miss a fish on a frog and Andrew will be like, oh, grab a rod and chuck a Senko at it and catch the fish.
I unapologetically, yes, I do that.
I feel like if I was fishing with Bob Izumi, not that this would ever happen, but if I was fishing with Bob Izumi and he missed a fish on a frog, I wouldn't dare. I would not dare chuck
I would,
anything else at that fish. Because I just picture Bob Izumi would just give me, he has that like aura. He just looks at me, he's just like, don't you dare.
See, I'm the opposite. I would, and then I would come on the podcast and be like, with clickbait on the front cover, the time I stole Bob Izumi's fish.
That's why Bob Izumi will never come on this podcast. Tip number 32. These are all just great tips. Varying your retrieve. Again, we talked about this with Travis from Tackle Bows. We were talking about the biggest mistake people make fishing a chatterbait. And he said straight retrieving is the biggest mistake when you're fishing a chatterbait. You got to vary your retrieve. That's something me and Andrew always tried over the years. I always have to remind myself to do it because sometimes you just get in the zone. You're just reeling in and you just kind of get into a rhythm of like casting up, reeling in, casting up, reeling in. And you don't bother, swinging your rod to the side or popping it as you're reeling it in or slowing it down and speeding it up. Those are the kind of things that trigger fish, especially fish like pike and muskie that really react to baits just trying to run away from them. One thing that I learned is when you cast out, say like a crankbait, you want to be ripping, say you have like a lipless crankbait, chuck it around the weed edges, you want it to be bashing into the weeds and ripping it out. And when it rips out, that causes a reaction bite, and that's when the fish slam it almost every time for me. So varying your retrieve. And one more tip. Actually, look, there's a surprise guest. I think that's Gord Pizer. Isn't it?
It looks like it.
Looks like him. Picture of him. I have to say, though, this book doesn't have as good of pictures in as the angling books that we were just talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
The last point I will go through, it's funny because there's a whole chapters about flipping and pitching, and they're like braided line was like just coming out. So like 30-pound monofilament. I was like, holy smokes, how do you do that? So I thought this was funny. There's a whole chapter, section about salmon and steelhead fishing. And tip number 79, he's talking about using single eggs for steelhead. And what they would do is they would boil single salmon eggs so that you could actually hook them on a small salmon egg hook. Now you may think, why the heck would you do that? Why wouldn't you just use a bead? And then I realized beads hadn't been used at this point yet. It's just funny because like I grew up fishing trout and steelhead. And when I first started fishing, beads weren't really a thing at all. Like I'm sure some guys sneakily use them, but I remember guys fishing single eggs and you'd have to boil them because if you know anything about salmon eggs, if you try to hook a salmon egg, it just explodes. Mm-hmm. So they would boil them. They'd kind of turn whitish, which is why I like using the white or slightly off white, pinkish brown eggs, like the beads, because it looks like a dead egg. This whole tip about using single eggs, it goes in the point of like why you'd use a single one is to trick fish that are finicky and in crystal clear water. Now we wouldn't really dream of using a boiled single egg. You would just use a bead, and generally that is one of the most popular steelhead lures of all time now is beads because they work so good. But that at the time, 25 years ago, that didn't exist. So it's not faulting the book. It's just old. But yeah, there's lots of good tips. You ever see this in the library or Value Village, buy this book. And hopefully Bob Izumi will sign this book for me at Cancast. I'm going to bring this.
Yep, you should.
I'll put it in Andrew's backpack. He'll carry it around for me. I don't care. If I have to carry it, though, I'm not bringing it. Anyway, you'll see me. There's going to be a bunch of kids lined up to see Bob, and I'm just going to be standing there with my book, just like...
Excuse me, Mr. Izumi, can you sign this book for me?
Can you sign my forehead?
The last book I wanted to feature here I wanted to feature it just as an example of not every book can be a winner. This one, there's hand-drawn artwork. This is an older book. This is from, I believe it's the 60s. No, first published in 79, so not as old as I thought. But this is the Penguin book of fishing. You might know the Penguin books for the classics like Robin Hood or Moby Dick. They also made a fishing book. And it's all about the complete guide to fishing, apparently. The reason why I say it can't be winners is not because the information is bad. It's actually very generalized information. It covers everything from fishing and catching bait fish to catching game fish in saltwater and freshwater using a variety of techniques. And reading through it, it's actually very accurate. For example, it has one little point here about fighting fish. And Jesse mentioned this just recently, is fish are normally played with a rod more or less upright. However, a fish running hard towards a snag can be steered by laying the rod to one side, parallel to the water, so that sideways pressure or side strain is exerted. Excellent. There's good information in here. It's a good book. I'm not going to fault it for that. It seems very well written. But it seems like it was written by lawyers and scientists because it is a slog to read. And just as one other example, this has nice little hand-drawn diagrams all throughout the book. All black and white, no color photos. This is, like I said, it's not like the kind of book you read as a kid, although I did, and I didn't enjoy it as much as the other ones. This is the wording, talking about how a rod, when casting a rod, the difference in motion between your hand and what the actual rod tip is doing. Figure 1. The arc covered by the rod tip, A, during casting is much greater than the arc covered by the arm, B, during the same time. The rod tip is therefore traveling at a higher velocity than the arm. I don't want this information delivered in this way. There are some books, and Bob Izumi's book is a great example. There's a few others as well, which there's humorous anecdotes throughout the book. There's different things that make it entertaining to read. The freshwater angler books have amazing photographs, and if you don't like reading, just looking at the photos, you can still learn a fair bit from the book. Yeah. And just look at the captions and what the photos are of. Again, this is a good book, The Penguin Book of Fishing by Ted Lamb, but it's a slog to get through. But I think I had fun in this episode because it got me to do research into looking at these old books. And I'm happy to say that I'm glad that I did read these when I was younger. As much as a lot of the information, wasn't relevant then for me because it was fishing down, using techniques or areas I would just never be. But there was a lot of information that helped me learn how to fish. That gave me my basis into actually taking fishing seriously, was reading these books as a kid.
Yeah.
wanting to try buying my first spinnerbait and trying it because I saw the cool spinnerbait photos in the largemouth book.
Yeah.
Wanting to, try what a willow leaf blade was instead of a Colorado. Like all these things, wanting to fish live salamanders because I didn't think that was illegal. Because in America, in some states, you can. But all those things, you have to take with a grain of salt whatever you read these things, because not only are they outdated now or written for different areas, especially with laws and certain things, but they have a lot of information still. So if you are bored, if you have a long car ride coming up and you have a local library, go see what they have, pick one out, and let us know which book that you read if you have the time. I know it's a dying medium is the written word, but there is some value to be had there, especially if you're new to angling. I know I used to take mine to school and stuff and read it on the school bus, and I'd be the weirdo reading fishing magazines and books and sitting in class. But yeah, it's cool to kind of revisit that. It's a big hit of nostalgia for me, and hopefully for some of our listeners as well.
I know when I open those old books, it's nostalgic because, yeah, again, we used to read them cover to cover, memorize everything. We used to do that too with the Bass Pro Shops catalogs, and they used to mail those out. I would memorize the whole catalog. I knew every lure and rods that were available and all this stuff. Yeah,
we would memorize like all the new lengths and actions of the new Shimano Claris for 2012. We're like, oh yes, did you see they're now releasing a 7-foot 2-inch ultralight?
Then we bought it.
Yep.
I was gonna go through one more book, but I think I'm gonna save this for another time because this particular book, it's the Hunting and Fishing Library books. This is Secrets of the Fishing Pros. Now this one is it's old. It's very old. I think it's 1989, so it's over 35 years old. But it's broken down into just sections of like, instead of like 1 or 2 page articles, it goes into like full like little kind of like fishing magazine like articles that are like multiple pages long. And there's one about canoe fishing for smallmouth bass, and there's multiple pages. And it kind of reminds me of like Algonquin Park, like some of our trips. So I think in a future episode, maybe for an interesting fishing fact, we'll cover that, because a lot of the techniques in that are still applicable today. And just to wrap this episode up, technology definitely has advanced. Fishing gear technology as well has advanced. I always think whenever we go into the tackle shop and you pick up like $100 rod, $120, that rod like 25 years ago would have been like the highest end, like of sensitivity. So don't for a second think if you have a low budget that you're at a disadvantage, because you are way ahead of what your grandpa ever had. He had the whippiest fiberglass rod with the stretchiest line, and he still caught fish. Pole. Yeah. The rods and reels we have now are light years ahead of what they used to have. You do not need to have expensive gear to catch fish. Absolutely not. But technology has changed. Fishing lures have changed. But generally speaking, it's all the same, except for like the electronics part of it. You don't need anything fancy. You can use all the techniques that we talked about, these old 40, 50-year-old techniques, and still catch fish. None of that has changed. And the cool thing is, maybe you use some of these old techniques and old lures that the fish in your pressured water have never seen in their lifetime. And their parents have never seen, and their grandparents and their great-great-grandparents of fish have never seen this thing. So maybe try something different, and yeah, you never know, you'll catch fish.
A lot of the older techniques are coming back into fashion. Like as you said, spinnerbaits are working better now than they were 10 years ago because they kind of fell off in popularity, but now they're working again. So yeah, there's value to be had. Maybe this is this is a conspiracy theory time. What if the next Bassmaster Classic winner, he's like, oh, I have my secret, fishing stuff. And he pulls out an old freshwater angler book. And he's like, I've been using robo-worms.
Those are so popular. I'd be more shocked if he's like, I caught them all on a spoon plug.
Yes.
And Andrew's like, where did you get that?
He just has like 17 tackle trays, different colors. I'm like, that's where they all went.
So I know there's always a segment where during the podcast, we talk about the fishing gear we bought since the last episode. I didn't warn Andrew about this. This is a new segment we're going to do. We're going to talk briefly because we buy a lot of fishing tackle. These are not like sponsored or anything. We just buy a lot of crap. So we're going to talk about it. Do we need any of the stuff we bought in the last month? Absolutely not. It is ice fishing season, and me and Andrew bought these. I want to talk about these quick. So I'm a big fan of...
You should have told me this. I would grab my bag of stuff that I just got.
No, but like, what do you got?
I have a bag by the front door of stuff that I bought.
Okay, next episode.
Still sitting in the bag.
Next episode, you can tell.
Okay.
But this one item that we're going to talk about is something me and Andrew both bought. And this is why it's good to have fishing friends. So I bought these Savage Gear Tough Toads. Now these, to describe them, we love frog fishing. This is not a hollow body frog. This is a solid body TPE, soft plastic frog, but it still has the plastic legs, like the strands coming off the back. It has a single hook, like an EWG, and it has a slot. So the hook actually sits nice and flush and it pops through very easily. Now, TPE floats. So these are going to float really high. I feel like it's going to walk pretty good because it's keeled. It's super soft. The reason that it kind of caught my attention is oftentimes I find with frog fishing, especially not fishing like super, super heavy slop, because if I was fishing super heavy slop, I probably wouldn't use this particular frog with a EWG hook hanging down. But this thing, it's heavy because it's solid TPE. It's just like a chunk of thick plastic. It's not hollow. Water's not going to get in it because it's solid. This thing is going to cast a legit mile.
How heavy is it? What does each one weigh again?
It says it weighs 3/4 of an ounce, which that's a little heavier than an average hollow body frog for sure. But I just feel like the aerodynamics of it, it's going to cast a mile. And it's nothing crazy. It's just, it's another frog. But the cool thing is, my favorite frog color is white. A lot of people like black. A lot of people don't think it matters. Like, just get a black one. I like white. It's my confidence bait. Maybe it's because my vision is not as good, so I can see it. I can see it better. Like, black kind of blends in. But what we did is I bought a pack of white. Andrew bought a pack of black. And right at the tackle shop when we bought them, we're at the front counter and we both opened them and swapped them. I put a black one in mine and he took a white one. And the guy was just like, what? And I was like, oh yeah, we always do this. And then Andrew started singing Ebony and Ivory. It was a beautiful moment. But I'm excited to try this. They are scented. It comes with, it says Tough Tech 12X strong. Who knows what that means? The plastic is strong. I don't know. But those are cool. I think we will catch fish on those. Will it catch any more fish than a regular frog? Probably not. I just like trying new crab. Anyway, maybe every episode going forward, we'll talk about one or two things because we buy tackle year round, absolutely year round. I'm actually pretty excited this year because Andrew got a boat. We're actually going to be doing a lot more tackle reviews. We have a lot of companies recently actually that have reached out to us for the 2026 season. Of course, we have our buddy Wes from Wham Baits. He has a bunch of new baits that we're excited to try.
They look awesome. Yep. And they're debuting at Cancast.
Yeah. Come to Cancast. So me and Andrew are actually going to do a full day early season bass fishing just using Wham Baits. It's going to be a cool day. Also, well, of course, we have Wes from Wham Baits and we also have Mike from Water Wolf Lures, who we're always partnered with because we love that guy. He's so nice and he makes awesome baits. So we're going to be trying some new stuff that he is coming out in 2026. 2026, I feel like a lot of stuff is pushing through this year. I'm excited. Yeah. Then we have a bunch of other brands we're going to be working with. And we have a lot of giveaways coming up. The giveaways are pretty much going to start after Cancast because giveaways are a lot of work. After Cancast, you're going to see some really nice giveaways.
And a lot of the giveaways too are working with a lot of local companies for them.
Yep.
And they are making sure they have stock for Cancast because a lot of them, they sell out every year.
Yeah.
It's
a beast of a show. But anyway, stay tuned for the giveaways and to enter into the giveaways just for the future. You have to be a Patreon member. You can be a free member. That's absolutely fine. You have to be a Patreon member. We only announce the giveaways on Patreon. You go on our Patreon as well. If you are a member, a supporting member, you also got the YouTube videos without ads. Like on YouTube, you don't want to watch all those stupid ads. Get that. It helps support the show. There is some expenses to running this show. Not only does it take a lot of effort to like edit it and spend the time recording it, but we also have to pay for like podcast hosts and the recording software that we use. So if you want to help cover the costs, we appreciate it. But if not, make sure you join as a Patreon member as well. So that's all I have to say for housekeeping, Andrew.
Jesse's good at keeping house. Later, he's going to do the dishes.
I actually am.
I did mine just before the podcast.
I was like to my wife, I'm going to have a podcast tonight. And after I'll do the dishes. And she's like, oh.
And she's like, oh, you better.
She's like, oh, Jesse, why don't you buy yourself a new Daiwa Tatula 200 bait casting reel? And I was like, I already did, baby. Yeah. I already did. We're going to talk about that on another episode. But just to let you guys know, I just bought a new Daiwa Tatula 200 bait caster. Also, another tip, I did not need a new Daiwa Tatula 200 bait caster.
I do need some more bait casters, but that's a story for another day. I need to save up for all the trade shows this year and also my regular average monthly spending at local tackle shops. So we thank you for sticking around listening. Hopefully you enjoyed this trip down memory lane just as much as we did, talking about some of these older, outdated but still valuable books that are out there. still entertaining. If you have a favorite book or something that you have liked, reach out to us. Let us know. Interact with us online on social media or on the YouTube comments. And maybe you'll give a recommendation that someone else will like, that maybe they didn't like our recommendations, but they saw your comments and they're like, that guy, he should make a podcast.
I encourage it.
So we thank you again for sticking around. And as tradition states, before we end this yet another episode, Jesse has forgotten, but is still forced to have to come up with a quote of the week.
Yes. You know what? I'm going to end this episode with something terrifying, but it's also 1990s nostalgic. You remember the quote, "Take a look in a book, reading railroad"?
Wasn't Reading Rainbow?
Oh, yeah. Reading Rainbow. Oh, yeah. It wasn't. No, I'm confusing that with Thomas the Tank Engine. Never mind. That's
yes.
the quote. Yeah.